Okay, we're going to call to order Monday, November 18th, 2019, Finance and Purchasing Committee. Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo.
Here.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Here.
Alderman Rivera.
Present.
Alderman Seeger. Alderman Newsome.
Present. Item B, we did roll call. Item C, approval of the minutes. I take a motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Rivera, to approve the minutes as shown from October 21st, 2019, Finance and Purchasing Committee. Is there any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Public comment, is there any?
Good evening. My name is Don Quinn, 4876 West Heritage, and I have several items on the agenda. There are beginning with D, E, F, H, I, and J. And I'm going to address some of them together so that I don't have to talk to everyone because they're all saying the same thing. You have a stipulation on these ordinances that say that you're asking the City Council to go with an exemption of good faith waiver so you don't have to bid on these particular items. Now, two of these items, items D and E, are asking for repair parts for vehicles and repair parts for vehicles from two different companies. So my question here, which is always the same question I have every time I come up and talk for these things while you're waiving bids rather than bidding for items and trying to get a low price, are there specific things that you ought to have? What happens is when Mr. Hewitt comes up, he tells us how these people are giving us good service, and they're also giving us, some of them, he said, will be here right away because they're close to us. Now, the understanding is, I think what you ought to do is just change your ordinance to say that you have preferred vendors. If you have preferred vendors, then you won't have to go through the bidding process, and you won't have to ask the council each time to waive bids on these preferred vendors. It looks to me, every time this comes up, it's up every committee meeting, every council meeting. You're waiving bids on good faith. Now, I can understand the professional expertise, and I'm going to ask a question about that on item J too, but yeah, I can understand that if it's a sole source vendor that can do those things, okay? But that's my question. Why are we always waiving these? And then the explanation is not because there's one explanation on here that says that the low bidder did not meet the qualifications of the bid, okay? So that means that they're bidding and they're not looking at the scope of work when they bid. If they can't do the job, they shouldn't bid on the job. I understand that. But the other ones are just a good faith waiver. It's built in as a stopgap or a loophole in order to get preferred vendors. Call it what it is. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So you get my point, and you should, as a council, all I hear about, we don't want to raise taxes, we want to do this, start bidding some of these things out and start lowering the cost of what we're paying for. The next thing. Item J, motion to authorize the proper city officials to execute an agreement with whatever it is, Avenue Insight, an analytical for the purpose of conducting an audit of hotel tax and food and beverage taxes. Is that the job of the staff to do audits, or do we have auditors that we pay each year to audit all of the finances for the city? Why are we getting another audit coming up on this and paying them for doing that? That is a question.
Can we wait till we get to that item?
Okay.
Oh, you want it?
You can explain that, okay.
Okay.
The other thing was, this is the last one, I promise. Because you're not going to answer any of them anyway. Motion to authorize proper city officials, Thompson Elevator Service to do your inspections. And I misspoke to the chairman before about Thompson Elevator being exclusively doing this, and I talked about Lakeland Larson, which is a Waukegan company. However, Thompson Elevator does the inspections for the state. And they come by my building and they inspect our elevators, and it's a flat fee that the state charges. And we only have one elevator, but if you have enough elevators that you're paying them $40,000 a year to do all of your inspections that the state pays them for anyway, I don't understand why we're doing that. If that can be explained when you come to that item too, I'll appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any more questions? Public comment? Okay, moving along to new business. Item A, motion to approve a resolution adopting the terms for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, funding of City of Waukegan code enforcement activities pursuant to the 2019 action plan dated March 18th, 2019.
Madam Chair, I believe we have one more public comment.
Oh, this is, if you want to speak about anything that's on the agenda in the Finance Committee.
I'm not sure this is the part where I'm requesting a refund for a
The full council. All right. You can come on. The CDBG program allocates $50,000 in funding to the Code Compliance Program. The Code Compliance Program was approved by the City Council in the 2019 Action Plan on March 18, 2019. The program focuses on city code enforcement for inspections of code violations in deteriorating areas where 51% of the population is considered to be and living in low to moderate income areas throughout the community. The program is addressed through various forms of rehabilitation, such as housing, infrastructure improvements. The CDBG program will pay $25,000 toward the salary of 2 inspectors, and these inspectors are in the 1st and the 4th ward. Is that?
Actually, we asked that that be changed earlier. You should have received an update that changed that to the entire city, wouldn't restrict it to the 1st and the 4th. It would be
Okay.
the entire city.
Okay, my mistake, design being within the 1st. Okay. So it's going to be throughout the whole city?
Throughout the city.
Okay.
It would be based on the clients that apply for the housing rehab program.
Okay.
And so it would be just wherever applicants
Need it.
apply from throughout the city.
Oh, okay. All right then. Motion by, are there any questions on the motion? Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera.
Respect, Madam Chair, can we just have clarification when you do make the motion that you're
Okay.
adopting the amended version, which is, it looks like there's 2
Proposed
versions of
change,
the
the CDBG
resolution attached to the board docs
This is-
documentation?
Right.
What I'm going to be reading.
Well, the motion doesn't need to change necessarily, but we can reflect it. The motion wasn't written that specifically,
No, I
but the
under-
the revised resolution is attached to board docs on the committee, as well as the city council, and it says revised. So can we record in the minutes that it's the revised?
That's what I'm asking, that
Okay.
you
Okay.
make some sort of recommendation to the city council that they adopt that revised or resolution rather than just adopting a resolution.
So the motion is going to stay the same as what I read.
Well, I would change the motion so it reads the
Revised resolution?
revised resolution, because there's 2 resolutions attached, one that includes the language that you're attempting to amend it to, and one that does not.
Okay, so it's a motion to approve the revised resolution adopting the terms for Community Development Block Grant CDBG funding of the City of Waukegan code enforcement activities pursuant to the 2019 Action Plan dated March 18, 2019. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo. Aye. Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item B, excuse me, motion to authorize the proper city officials to enter into a first work experience grant agreement with the State of Illinois Department of Human Services. There is no reimbursement or local matching requirement for this grant. You want to speak to that one too, or is that part of the CDB?
I'm not sure if, were you updated on this?
Yes.
By Ms. Garland?
This is an opportunity to partner with the State of Illinois Department of Human Services on this workforce work experience program, which would provide an opportunity for employment and job training opportunities for low-income individuals in order to develop and maintain self-sufficiency. As a joint collaboration between the CDBG department and building department, they will provide work experience and training for the 2 employees for the program. So basically, the employees would work in our building and CDBG department, basically answering the phones, directing customers, copying, scanning, basic administrative skills. at no cost to the city while they are obtaining training and work experience.
And we did want to note that they're not payrolled by the city at all. That's through the state program, and that the state does provide bonding for these individuals. Should, there be any instances where there might be something that would come up, the state provides the bonding for the individuals that would be on site here.
How long is this for?
It's indefinite right
Indefinite.
now. The bonding would be 6 months initially, and then you could revisit the bonding after 6 months.
And how many individuals is that for?
That would be for two people.
Any more questions? Take a motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Moiseo. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo. Aye. Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item C, motion to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to Trillium Pumps USA Incorporated, the lowest responsible bidder, in the amount of $389,502 for water plant pumps. The lowest bidder did not meet project requirements. This project will be funded from the Water and Sewer Revenue Bond Series 2018C. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Kirkwood. Are there any questions on this motion? Question by Alderman Rivera.
Does this increase our capacity at all, or is it just replacing current equipment that we have with our current capacity?
Actually, what it's doing is we're replacing 2 pumps with 6. Yes, so 3 and 3. It's getting rid of the second and fourth, was it? I believe. CMT's here as well. The ones that are doing the design on the pumps.
Okay.
And yes, it actually does increase capacity. All right.
Would you please state your name and the company you're with, just so we can get it in the minutes correctly?
Sure. My name is Micah Pittner, and I work for Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley. And as Mike stated, we'll be replacing pumps 1 and 2 at the plant with 6 new pumps, and they will be replacing pumps that are currently not functioning and also increasing capacity.
Okay, do we know how much capacity, the percentage of capacity that's being increased, or?
The current pumps produce about 7,000 gallons per minute, and these 6 will do 9,000.
Okay, so we're gonna replace 2 pumps with 6 pumps?
Correct.
Okay.
And for the record, because this is not awarding the contract to the low bid, and instead it says that it's awarding to the lowest responsible bidder, could you, for the record, explain why you're recommending that the Trillium pumps be awarded the contract instead of the lowest bid?
Sure. The simple explanation is the lowest bidder's pumps did not meet the requirements of our spec. They were undersized. We had 2 kind of conditions that we wanted the pumps to be able to meet, and the lowest bidder's pumps met the lower requirement but not the higher requirement. And the responsible bidder was able to meet both of those requirements.
Any more questions? Alderman Kirkwood.
So the current pumps that are not working, did the lowest bidder specs meet those particular pumps that were currently not in use?
I'm not sure the specs of the current pumps. My work was to design the pumps for the conditions that we expect the plant to see now and in the future.
Okay, so then the bid that was put out there did not contain the specific specs that the current pumps were. You designed new specs, is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item D, motion to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to Certified Fleet for the purpose of vehicle maintenance parts, repairs, and inspections with a not-to-exceed amount of $30,000 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to waive the competitive bid process pursuant to City of Waukegan Code of Ordinance exception of good faith waiver, Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 7. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera.
Alderman Newsom.
Yes.
Mr. Quinn was right on target. We need to be looking at good faith waivers.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
and-
hold these up tonight, but
I think what is happening with this is we have certain vendors that we're using already, and other departments are using them as well, and that's what's causing the amount to go over the 25,000.
and I get all that. Maybe we need to
We
clean
need
this
to-
up and
yeah.
and make it good that it just catches the public's eye and it catches my eye when you hear the word waive the competitive bid process.
I don't even think that should be in there.
Well, it needs to be in there because of the way it's set up, but we have reasons why we're waiving.
Well, like on this one here for Certified, Certified does our inspections for our lift trucks. We have 3 of them. And what happened was the first one went in, the money wasn't that expensive. We don't know what it's going to cost to fix them until they actually get them in, tear them apart. So if we were to say, put it back together again because we went over, that's on that one is basically why. And they're the closest vendor too. I think the other one's way up in
It was like La Crosse, Wisconsin,
Cross
I
or
think.
someplace, so. All right,
And I get it, I guess.
on this one, yeah.
As President Reagan would say, trust but verify. I don't think the public likes the word waive the competitive
Good faith
bid
waiver,
process.
if we're not,
And like I said, if we could, and I don't want to change it because we're trying to circumvent the competitive bid process, but if there's a good reason, which there is, and there's also a good reason down here for Jay to audit because they're the only ones that do it, and if we did go out to bid, they'd probably be the only ones that bid on it anyway. So I get it, there's usually reasons for this, but sometimes there's verbiage and words in these motions that catch the eyes of people and it make it look like, you know, we're, I don't know what the word is, but if we could just clean that up somehow, I don't know.
With all due respect to the process, this is exactly a good faith waiver.
Okay.
That this is an item that, Mr. Hewitt and I did discuss
Yes.
last week when this was submitted to be included. This would be something that could have gone out to bid or RFP. We probably would have received back the one bidder, but it didn't, after discussing with Corporation Counsel, it didn't rise to the level of professional services or sole source. So it really truly is a good faith waiver. State statute also has requirements for competitive bidding. So the city would not, I don't believe, be able to just decide that we have a list of preferred vendors without first bringing those to city council annually to have them approved through a good faith waiver.
Okay.
So this is as clean as it can get. What we are doing in the finance department is after every bill run, we update a spreadsheet that we're maintaining with all of the vendors and the payments. And when we see that it's getting close to 25,000, we alert the departments that they are potentially exceeding their authority. Those emails are less and less and less every fiscal year, which is a good thing. But as far as cross-departmental spending, it is an internal communication issue, but all departments, in all fairness, do have the ability to run any vendor report and see where the spending is with a particular vendor. So I think we have made improvements in that area, but I think Mr. Hewitt and I agree, we all could probably do a little better job, going out to bid or RFP earlier in the fiscal year,
Or finding vendors that have already been bid.
like we have with the state or the county on some of the other ones
Yeah,
here.
that's the other thing, that some of these other ones, the state has already done all that. for us.
Correct.
We're just
Right.
piggybacking on it, and so is the one with, H is also the same thing. We're just piggybacking on with the county.
Correct.
I get those. And I
Right.
think the public would understand those too, just as long as we can explain what the good faith bid, which you just did, that's fine with me.
Alderman Rivera.
I think that, is there any way that an explanation can be added why it's being waived?
Absolutely. We can
Because
do
I
that.
think that's primarily the issue, where I did the same thing. I highlighted every single one that was waived, and my question was going to be why. So if there was at least something in there to kind of just lead people to where we're going with this, versus just leaving it where waived, because again, it just causes questions.
We do make, I mean, there are attachments on board
Oh,
docs,
no,
but
no,
they could be more expansive as to the reason why. And
explicit,
we could
basically.
also add it to the public. I'm not sure, I'm looking at Mr. Durando, if we would want to add much more to the motion itself.
It's awful.
It doesn't have to be
I would
elaborate.
I would encourage you not to add it to the language in the motion, but I do think that an explanation, is definitely warranted, and especially in the case of a good faith waiver, should be included in a cover memo to the council.
So we can expand more what we put on board docs.
Just as an aside, I looked at it, someone asked me about it. I called Tina this afternoon. She explained it to me. Pretty simple. That's how it's supposed to work. People ask you, you call the department head tells the alderman tells the people that questioned it. That's how it should work, which it did in my case. I didn't, obviously, Mr. Quinn, you didn't call me this afternoon. I sure did. No, I'm not, I say that tongue in cheek. The person that questioned me was standing right next to me, so. But
They're certainly good questions,
Yeah,
and
no.
we will, try to make the, within the board docs, what you can see, we can add some text to that whenever there is a good faith waiver, or some of the waivers are because it's joint purchasing, so it's already been bid. But
don't
we
even
can
think it's
certainly add some more explanation.
I
don't
have,
think it's good faith. I think it just says that competitive bid process. I think that's what gets people's antenna up. I don't think it's good faith. I think it's waive the competitive bid. I think that's what people say, oh, wait, whoa.
waiving, yeah. But also, last year, we had anything in excess of 20,000.
Right.
Now we have 25. Is it enough? Are we setting the amount enough to where we don't go over?
State law is 25,000.
Or is it?
We can't go above that.
And we usually do.
No.
On some things.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say that we usually do. Our bill run, you can look at, it's $2 million, every twice a month. But I do think that we can certainly improve on commodities like vehicle parts, elevator inspections, things that we might have vendors that we've used for years because they are close and they're really competent, good local businesses. And there is a local business, there is an option to, if the bids are equal, you can default and go with the local business. But we can certainly all work together as a team to do a little better job at the beginning of the fiscal year to go out to
Bidding.
bid or RFP, and even if it's a menu of pricing, and then bring that as a blanket purchase order approval, it's certainly an area we can improve on.
Right, and what we've been looking at too is the joint purchasing. Some other municipalities that bid things out, we can tie onto their bids.
Right.
So it's more, and we're better improved this year, let's put it that way. We're still at this point.
Okay, are there any more questions?
I have one question. So we do
Alderman
not
Kirkwood?
have a preferred vendors list that we,
Lake County has a preferred vendor list, and they obtain that list by doing an RFP or bidding process. So in the state of Illinois, unless I'm wrong, municipalities, bodies of local governments can't just create a preferred vendor list without doing some kind of request for proposal or invitation to bid process.
so we can't work with other municipalities that have similar needs, that we all bid together so that we can lower the price, whether
Right.
it's Zion, whether it's Grays Lake, whatever it is, that we all come together and bid because we all have trucks and things that we need in parts. Have we tried to do that to lower the cost? Because if we all come together, it's going to cost us less instead of us going out as individual municipalities.
Right, so Lake County already has a program that does that. So Lake County will do bidding for items that they're not even using, but that local governments can tap into. So the county, which has a full purchasing department, does have that program. It's something that Mr. Hewitt and I have looked at in the past. It's something we certainly can remind all of the department heads is out there as an option. It's on the Lake County website. But we have from time to time, for example, for our external auditing process, which is a financial audit, not an audit of tax returns, we did do a joint bid with Round Lake Beach. So from time to time, you know, those opportunities do afford themselves, but Lake County already has a pretty nice program for local governments, as does the state of Illinois.
Okay.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item E, motion to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to Kirschhofer Trucking for the purchase of vehicle maintenance parts, repairs, and inspections with a not-to-exceed amount of $45,000 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to the City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances, exception of good faith waiver, Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 7. Motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Moiseo. Are there any questions on the motion? It's the
Is
same
this
thing.
the same thing?
Basically the same as far as buying commodities and such. And this one, we were able to get jersey walls from, what we did was the nuclear power plant is eliminating all the jersey walls they had for all the years. So by using Kirchhofer Trucking, we were able to get them at cost. In other words, just pay for the trucking. And with the lake rising, I would like to have a few around.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo? Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item F, motion to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to Thompson Elevator Services for the purpose of elevator inspections with a not-to-exceed amount of $40,000 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances, exception of good faith waiver, Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 7. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Moiseo. Same thing.
Right. So we've had a contract, well, we contracted with this particular vendor in, I want to say back in like 1998 was the first time we used this vendor. Formally entered into a contract with them at that time. You know, I think in all fairness to the building department, they were operating under the assumption that city council approval from 1998 was still applicable to allow them to continue with this vendor. If they had spent less than $5,000, it would have been okay. I think that was the initial amount. So we did talk to the building commissioner and advised that he was reaching close to the $25,000 threshold on this. He did want to continue the fiscal year with this particular vendor. The city of Waukegan does do its own elevator inspections for its, I believe, I'm not the building commissioner, I don't see him here. I think they do. We do go out and do our own inspections. The building commissioner's name is on the certification in the elevator. We do charge a fee to recoup the cost, but it is a disbursement to a vendor, so it does go through the procurement process. So I do believe that Commissioner Pertel does plan on doing an RFP next spring, maybe a multi-year one, so that we can have, you know, a vendor that knows our code in our community.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item G, motion to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to Rush Trucking for the purpose of commodities supply and delivery with a not-to-exceed amount of $35,000 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances exemption for joint government purchasing via the State of Illinois program, Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 3. Motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Rivera. Any questions on the motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo. Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item H, motions to authorize the proper city officials to award a contract to McDowell Mechanical for the purpose of HVAC maintenance parts, repairs, and inspections with a not-to-exceed amount of $60,443.47 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to the City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances exemption for joint government purchasing via the County of Lake, Illinois. Program, Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 3. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera. Are there any questions on this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item I, motion to authorize the proper city officials to execute an agreement with Michael Hill for the purpose of recording, editing, producing, and delivering public meetings for a not-to-exceed amount of $80,000 for a 2.5-year period retroactive to May 1st, 2019, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to the City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances exemption of personal services and of high degree of skill, Section 2-458, subsection I, 4 to subsection 5. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Kirkwood. Are there any questions on this motion? Did you want to talk a little bit about that, or is it?
Madam Clerk.
This is one of those instances where, since the adoption of filming the committee meetings for transparency, we are increasing the amount of time Mr. Hill is here. So we just want to make sure that we don't exceed the 25. So it is a 2.5-year contract, not to exceed $30,000 per year, first 2 years, and then the additional $20,000.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo.
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood.
Aye.
Alderman Rivera.
Aye.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye, motion carried. Item J, motion to authorize the proper city officials to execute an agreement with Avenue Insight and Analytics for the purpose of conducting an audit of hotel tax and food and beverage tax with a contingency-based pricing model, and to waive the competitive bidding process pursuant to City of Waukegan Code of Ordinances exemption of professional services and of high degree of skill. Section 2-458, subsection I, subsection 4 to subsection 5. Motion by Alderman Rivera, second by Alderman Moiseo. Any questions on the motion?
I have a question.
Alderman Rivera.
Now, this vendor is going to be used to do an audit, and then according to the terms, it's $136,000. Is that what we're going to be paying them?
Well, and I invite Itzel Morales from the Finance Department and Mr. Boone from Avenue to come up so they can answer some specific questions. But the way that these contracts work, and this is different than the financial audit, the auditors that come in annually to audit our financial statements are auditing to ensure that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the Governmental Accounting Standard Board. They are not tax compliance auditors, so it's a completely different auditing field, and it's not required for their audit. They are following state statute and national standards for that. So I just wanted to clarify that there's different types of audit. That would be an external audit that results in an opinion on a financial statement. This is a compliance audit, so there are two different types of audits. There's more than two types of audits, but in the field of auditing, this is a different type. The way these audits work, we have 282 recurring food and beverage tax filers. We have a bunch of one-time, but 282 recurring 18 hotel tax filers. Those are filed every month. We do check the ST1s, the sales tax, versus what they're submitting. But these are on-site audits. Each audit takes about 40 hours per audit. These audits are looking at things like pulling their inventory to see, you said you sold X amount of Budweiser beer. However, what you reported to the State Liquor Commission is that you didn't buy any Budweiser beer. Please explain the difference to us. So these are on-site, very intense audits per institution or per location, which we have the right to do under the city code. And the cost per audit is a $2,000 flat fee. If they find that there's back taxes and fines or fees owed, then they, instead of the flat fee, they take a percentage going back 4 years of what they find. They take care of collecting all those back fees, and we're paid the net. And that's pretty typical of these types of audits. We did a utility tax audit about, I want to say 6 years ago, that resulted in about $300,000 of past taxes net of fees. So that's how it's compensated. You do want to have a flat rate because you don't want to give them an incentive to purposely find stuff. So if you go and you audit and someone's records are perfectly clean and they've been absolutely compliant, then we pay Avenue $2,000 for their time.
I thought it said $2,000 or 35%.
Whichever is higher, correct.
Whichever is
So
higher.
if they go into a restaurant or a packaged liquor store and they find no taxes that were reported incorrectly, so there's no back taxes, there's no back fees, the city pays the auditor $2,000 for conducting that audit. If, however, they find back taxes and fees, and oftentimes, and Mr. Boone can speak to this, they have charged that tax to the customer and then just failed to remit it to the city. That is most likely what has occurred. In that case, if there's $50,000 in back taxes and fines that are due to the city, then Avenue takes 35% and the city
of that.
gets the balance.
Now, and you stated that this is a more of a city audit versus a state?
Yes.
Okay.
This is for the city, locally collected food and beverage and hotel tax.
Okay, so everybody that collects state tax has to file a form with the state?
Correct, an ST1 for sales tax for food and beverage, and then I think the hotel tax form is an HT1 or something along those lines.
Okay, so does the state give us any indications of people that are in the rears that haven't?
We
Is
receive
this why we're doing this, or?
receive a copy of the ST1 when they file the food and beverage tax with us. We are not entirely confident that the ST1 is always completed accurately and honestly. So that is right now our only document. The state used to do on-site audits for sales tax and things like that years and years ago. They have not done regular audits in earnest in probably a decade due to staff reduction. Once in a while, we will get notification that they have conducted an audit. There was one about 4 years ago that was for a gas station that was charging and collecting sales tax both at the state level and the city level and was not remitting it. The state went in, they did an audit, they levied several fines, and there was criminal charges actually that came as a result of that. The Illinois Department of Revenue is very, very dependent now on whistleblowing and tips because they just don't have the audit staff in the field that they used to. So that's part of the reason that we're doing this. Also on the food and beverage tax reports that you all see under executive content that are not publicly released because it's sales tax and we can't do that, months will go by where a particular restaurant doesn't file or pay. And then we'll get a large amount of money from that restaurant right before their, liquor license is up for renewal.
But
So-
isn't that part of our ordinance, though?
Yes.
And shouldn't we be able to adjust our ordinance so that that doesn't occur?
What, that people lie on their taxes?
No, that they
Right.
don't submit the forms.
We do have that. It is in our ordinance. It's in our ordinance that they're due by the 20th. It's in our ordinance if they don't file on time, that there's a 5% late penalty that's applicable. And we can't shut them down necessarily without going through an adjudication process and revoking their business license and or certificate of occupancy. So that's a long process to get to the point where our recourse would be to shut them down. Regardless, part of what this audit is doing is not only that, but it's also ensuring that what they're reporting is accurate. One of the ways you can lower your hotel tax is to claim a permanent resident was staying at your hotel, that they were there for, is it 30 days, Richard? That they were there for 30 days. So the ability to go on site and ask to pull all their records, our staff are not auditors. We're not auditors. That's not what we do. So this will be on-site audits, and we anticipate that this contract will pay for itself. It'll take probably 4 to 6 months, but it's overdue.
It's audit services, and then how is the process going to be maintained post the audit?
Well, that's a great question. We would hope that the fact that we've done this audit will encourage compliance citywide, and this may just be something that we have to undertake every so many years. One of the things that Avenue offers is, and I think there's other firms that offer this too, is we could outsource the auditing process and force it all online, but there's a reason that places like the IRS have large staffs that do compliance audits. So the majority of your business owners hopefully are operating honestly and fairly and, collecting the correct amount and remitting the correct amount. But there's human nature, and that's why there's audits.
And I appreciate that, and it's a great explanation. What I was looking at, though, like the state liquor, for
Right.
instance, let's say there's a deadline, and I guess that's done every month also, isn't it, for businesses?
To report to the Liquor Commission?
Correct.
Right.
All right. So, and then if you miss a month, the commission doesn't mess around. They just tell you, your license is suspended.
If the Liquor Commission is suspending a license, I believe they have to go through a hearing process. They can't just suspend it. But if it is
no.
suspended, we're advised.
No, absolutely.
Right.
They do have a process, but it looks like our ordinance doesn't have that kind of a process where people are incented to really do this. I mean, if it's...
You're right, and that is, if I may, that's part of the reason we want to bring Richard in, and I keep talking on his behalf. If he can come up, part of what this organization will do is look at our ordinance in conjunction with what's allowed under state of Illinois specifically, and make recommendations based on what they find when they're auditing for us to strengthen our ordinance.
Yeah,
So-
good evening. I am Richard Boone with Avenue Insights and Analytics. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, like Tina said, that's one of the services that we will provide is to look at the ordinance. We, as a company, we have 800 employees. We have an auditing department with 85 full-time auditors located in 3 cities. So we've done thousands of these types of audits for hundreds of cities and counties of various sizes. So we've seen a lot of ordinances, and so based on that experience, we think, we might be able to provide some insight.
Oh, thank you. The questions that I have, though, are more towards, I mean, we can identify what's going on and where it's bleeding, let's say. But how do we go forward in making sure that it doesn't continue to happen where we have to come back and every 4 or 5 years do audits like these?
Yeah, a lot of this, from our experience, it's an educational thing as well for taxpayers. For example, we did hotel audits for the city of Marshall. They have 3 hotels. One hotel, we found $55,000 in underreported revenue. The other 2, we found underreported revenue, but it was focused on pets and the pet fee. So the city said, don't worry about it, but from here on out, let's start tracking that revenue. So that's kind of an example of how.
It's a byproduct of what is going to come from the audit. Okay.
It's an education thing.
Okay. Thank you.
And one thing we have found, the chains know how to do this, right? The Chili's and the chains know how to do this because they're doing it out of a corporate office. A lot of time it's the smaller kind of mom and pop that might call with a question, do I include coffee? Do I include a sweet roll that's wrapped up? So, there is some of that. We will not be focusing on the smaller ones though, because we have so many. We're just going to go with 50 food and beverage to start with. All the hotels though, we'll be auditing.
And I do think it's important to note that the city does have some ability to track in-house when somebody is in arrears. And at that point, we have triggered various processes to get them to come in and actually pay. But, those are usually one-offs where it's a business who hasn't paid in 3 or 4 months. We send them a reminder letter. or, threaten them with legal action. We threaten them with, their liquor license hearing, and that brings them in. So some of those we are able to find in-house, but there are a lot of ones where we just have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, the outliers, no. And one of the things that I was looking at, though, is that I don't think our ordinance, really holds these people accountable, or incents them to be accountable.
The finance department would agree with you on that. But, we also don't want to be to the point where we're discouraging businesses to locate in Waukegan. But I do think that we could strengthen some of our, it's the 80-20 rule, right? And, the majority of our restaurants and packaged liquor are probably doing it right and want to do it the right way. And then you have some that know to come into compliance right before the liquor license is renewed, and they pay all the back fees. And so for months, they had the float of, using all that cash, and we send them the letters, and then, ITSA will send the letter, and then Douglas will send them the letter. So we could strengthen the ordinance, which is something we hope will be a product of this audit, without making it too cumbersome for businesses to comply. Hopefully we'll get everyone online. We still have paper filing and checks being written. We'd love to get everything online.
Is that not part of the process? Do we have a system for that?
We do have a system for filers to file and pay online. It's not currently mandated. One of what Avenue will do for the businesses that are audited that they find have past due amounts due, they will handle the notification and collection of the past due amounts. So from December going backwards 4 years. They do also offer, that as a service going forward, but that's not what we're here, asking for you to consider this evening.
Okay. All right. So what we're considering is just the 6-month contract for the initial audit.
Right.
Got it. Thank you.
And ITSA will be the project manager for this. So,
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item K, motion to authorize the proper city officials to approve a change order in the amount of $4,450 to increase the contract awarded to GNS Services for mowing services on July 15, 2019, to a total revised amount of $85,850 for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Kirkwood. Are there any questions on this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Rivera?
Aye.
Alderman Moiseo?
Aye.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Newsome?
Aye, motion carried. Item 3, old business. A motion to authorize Corporation Counsel relative to a sales tax rebate agreement expiring December 31st, 2019, by and between the City of Waukegan and HD Supply Facilities Maintenance LTD, to extend all terms as is, but for the expiry date, which will be changed from December 31st, 2019 to May 31st, 2020. I'll take a motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Rivera. Are there any questions on this motion?
No, but more comments.
Alderman Moiseo.
This is not a good deal for the city, but they generate a lot of sales tax. So it's the old adage, do you want half of something or all of nothing? And think about that as we go forward, and you hear people talk about economic development, and they want this and they want that. But you are in a very unbusiness-friendly state. Every company that comes here that can generate a lot of revenue is going to want a deal. And probably similar to this, which is awful for the city. No one's coming to Waukegan or anywhere in the state of Illinois and not wanting a deal. And you know what the problem is? Our geography, any company that's in Waukegan or Lake County can move 10 miles north and not lose their workforce and go to Wisconsin, just like Uline did. We need to keep that in mind about being business friendly. I've said it before. We need to be open for business, not closed for business. We may have to take some bad deals along the line. We can say no to everybody. But like I said, every dollar helps. That's the balancing act we have to try to decide on. Just like I said before, the tax levy's on the docket again tonight. We can't run this place on air, as an old colleague John Balin used to say. We need revenue. You need tax revenue. If you don't get it, you have to cut services. There's no other way around it. So we have to have a little bit of a balancing act, and sometimes we have to swallow pills we don't like. But to make the balance, the books balance, to get a water main fixed at 30 below because it's blown out, we got to call in overtime. All that has to be thought of when we make business deals and accept or reject companies who want to come. A lot of dominoes connected and a lot of dots to connect when it comes to trying to run a city, get revenue, pay everybody, pay pension costs, and all of that. That's just my experience up here. I wish it was easier. It's not. But that's just my thoughts on this. I mean, I'll make the motion to vote for this to extend it. I don't like it, but it's a pill right now I'm going to have to swallow because they do generate a substantial amount of sales tax. Thank you.
I understand. Alderman Rivera.
I just have a quick question. Alderman Mosio, you mentioned Uline going across the board. Is that what happened with them as far as
I don't.
not receiving a tax break from us? And
They never asked for
They never asked for.
Oh, they never asked
No,
for
they, obviously, if you know, I'm not going to get into all that, but they went there because Wisconsin was just more favorable. Now, Wisconsin may have given them a break. I don't know. Or Kenosha may have given them a break. I don't know.
Well, we weren't giving them a break or anything.
They didn't
like
ask.
that. Okay.
They just picked up one day and said, you know what, we're going to move some of our stuff that way. So, and understand, every community would all have to be competitive, bidding on companies and business. And then again, we have a problem because we're 10 miles from a state that's more business friendly than our own state. So that's a problem. Again, sometimes you got to take a pill you don't like.
I'd like to comment a little bit on this too. We have incentives that we give out to businesses that want to come into this community, but to what extreme do we offer that incentive? I can understand a 5-year incentive to get you off the ground, to establish a business, and give you a rebate of 50% or whatever. But at some point, do we extend it 20 years for you to get 50%? No. No, we don't. So I think they should come back to the table, as they will, and hey, we try to negotiate this. If you want a lesser amount of a rebate, yeah. We had Toyota that came in. They wanted a 20-year. We gave it to them, but they built a business off the ground. They built a new business. This company is just renting space.
Right. It's a bad deal, Alderman. I'm with you. It's a bad deal.
And it looks like this company is looking to relocate also, according to some of the information that I saw, or the possibility of relocating.
That's negotiation ploy, I think, Alderman. They're holding that over our head.
If we don't take it, they will move. So we have a motion on the floor to
Madam Chair.
extend, Alderman Kirkwood.
I guess, we talked about this before because we had held it over before, I believe. And my concern is that we want to be friendly to the businesses, but we certainly don't want them to have us in a chokehold
Right.
where they think that they're going to threaten us to leave. But I think that when we make those initial negotiations, it should be set up so that it is a 5-year, 3-year term,
A tier,
understanding that reducing that amount so that the city can get more from those businesses, but certainly try to help those businesses get off the ground. And I think from our initial negotiations, we need to look at that from this point on.
Right.
So we don't get in a situation where we're going to be losing revenue. Because all the things that we do, we need revenue. No one wants their taxes increased, but we got to find a way to certainly increase the revenues that come into the city.
And supply the services that the
Residents want.
Yeah.
As an aside, I don't know if anybody knows, but there was a company at Grays Lake that just wanted a rebate from Grays Lake of $600,000. I don't know if they left or stayed. I just saw the headlines of it. So we're not the only ones in the same boat. A company held Grays Lake hostage too for $600,000. So it's not just Waukegan. It was Grays Lake. How do you think Gurney got all those car dealerships?
Yeah.
Melody Farms in Vernon Hills, right next to Hawthorne Center. How do you think that happened? They didn't go out there and say, we're going to give you guys a satchel of cash. They said, we want a deal. Happens everywhere.
Roll call. Any more questions?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Moiseo,
Begrudgingly, yes.
Alderman Kirkwood,
Yes.
Alderman Rivera,
No.
Alderman Newsome.
Aye. Motion carried. Reports and communication.
Do you want, there's a few that we do have quick presentations on, and then maybe the rest could just be accepted
Okay.
into the record
Yeah,
to
3 minutes before
expedite.
council.
So that is
So, A,
the pension reform?
B, and E, I would say, if we could cover those this evening. And then, I mean, obviously, if the committee has any questions, I'm happy to answer those
Okay,
at
that's
a
fine.
later
You can
time.
read
That's
this.
fine.
You read it. You don't even read it.
Okay.
So Mr. Mallard from the mayor's office has an update for the pension reform legislation.
Oh, we're going to give that to all of them? Did you put one for?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very briefly, as many of you have seen last week, the State House and the State Senate approved SB 1300 to do pension consolidation. That is 650 separate local pension funds for police and fire into two, one police and one fire fund. We are still waiting the governor's signature on this, but presumably that will be occurring. And so in coordination with our lobbyist, we have developed just a brief memo to the council regarding pension consolidation. Obviously, it's very preliminary as of last week, so we will look for more information to come very shortly. The state has no more than 30 months to approve this transition.
Any questions?
No, just a couple of comments. I don't know if the public knows this, but you hear about pension reform, but police and fire, and Tina, you may have to help me on this if I don't get this right, but I think I got it right. Police and fire pension is municipal specific.
In the state of Illinois,
State of
yes.
Illinois, Waukegan is responsible for the police pension and the fire pension. In the state of Illinois, there's IMRF, which other municipal workers, public works, everybody up here, that's a statewide system. The state is responsible for IMRF. Teachers, TRS, is a statewide system. So the problem is if a municipality starts to go under and money becomes a really, really tight, then the police and fire pensions, you probably, if you can recall, a little history lesson, there were towns all over the country that were having real trouble with they weren't going to be able to pay their guys that were retired because that money was going dry. To me, this is a good thing because it makes a bigger pool. So am I right on this then that the police and fire will become more like IMRF and TRS as a generalization? I mean, I'm sure there'll be some stipulations, but it will become a statewide system and municipalities will not be responsible solely for the pension of the police and fire.
Or they will be combined for asset management purposes.
Okay.
Not for, there will still be independent boards at the local level. The independent boards will still determine disability pensions. And the city of Waukegan will still be responsible for contributing to our employees. But yes, it'll be more like IMRF than it was in the past. Is that fair?
Correct.
Because by it being municipal specific, there is a police pension board. There are 4 policemen and 3 mayor's appointees, right?
It's 1 retiree elected among retirees, 2 actives, and then 2 mayoral appointments now. Is the new, it's 5.
So, no offense, but you figure the math out? And then those guys were in charge of investing their money. So if they didn't invest that money correctly on the pension board, guess who had to pay the shortfall? You. Am I right on that, Tina?
Yes.
So a local board, a local pension board of police or fire that didn't invest correctly and lost a ton of money could come back to the taxpayers to get more money because they made a bad investment. Hopefully this helps with that.
Now, Tina, this is something that you and I talked about when I first came on the
Yes,
council.
absolutely.
And I told you that, this is something that we should look towards because, as I told you before, with TRS, except for the city of Chicago, we're all in the same pool.
Right, and Thomas and the mayor have been going to Springfield and going to Chicago and working with the Illinois Municipal League and with our consultants to make sure that we are front and center in the discussions. So I applaud the mayor's office for really, leading the charge on this in Lake County in particular.
Okay, I just like to make sure that we get, more updates as this gets further to the governor's office, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, which isn't one of our regular monthly or quarterly, the annual report of continuing disclosure. Not the most exciting thing, but it is something that we do once a year. We have to wait until our audit is complete, and this is required by the Security and Exchange Commission. And we file reports with national databases, so holders of our bonds or those looking to potentially purchase our bonds can have up-to-date information. So it's essentially taking that initial offering document when bonds were issued and updating it annually. And then the last item is Brittany Griffin from the Finance Department. She was the project manager for our water and sewer rebate program, so she included an update in the packet and will just give us a brief update, if she would.
Alrighty. So we accepted applications between September 1st and 30th for this program. Applications was received in person, email, fax, and mail. If a person did come and drop off an application at the front counter, we did screen those to see if they had met the program requirements. If they did not receive it, if they didn't have it, I should say, we did turn them around and we let them know to go to Lake County to apply for those exemptions that are needed for the program. We received 133 applications. 107 applications were approved, and 23 applications were denied. A total refund amount went out in a form of a credit on their water bill for the amount of $3,108.20, and I will say that our average refund was $28.26. As far as the amounts that the average months qualified was 6, and 84% of received applications were approved. As far as the denial stats, 16% of the received applications were denied. So a conclusion, approval, and denial letters were mailed out on November 1st, letting them know if they were approved or denied, and all credits were applied on the October monthly billing. And applications for next year will be taken into account for 2019 usage.
Alderman Rivera.
Sorry. Thank you. Good numbers. It seems like 133 apps for a city our size. That's pretty low.
It is pretty low, but do keep in mind that count does not include for applications that were received in the front that we had to deny because they did not meet the program criteria.
Okay.
So it does not include that amount in there.
Okay. And then next year, will the time span be September again, or?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was established by resolution approved by the city council. So it is that 1 month
rotating,
period.
okay.
And it links back to when the real estate tax bills come out because that's what we use for substantiation as to the status. So thank you to all those aldermen that communicated about the program on your social media or your newsletters. We did include information on the water bills.
Yes.
So getting the word out is paramount. One thing that we did notice is that there are seniors and veterans and other people that don't know that they can get these property tax, I don't want to use the word benefits, but
The
deferrals or,
senior.
the senior freeze, the veteran freeze. These programs are there. So that was one thing people came in, and while they did appear to maybe be seniors, especially to our first floor finance staff, which is all pretty young, I think I'm a senior to them. But, we really do need to have that third-party verification. So, that if, get the word out that the county and the townships have these fantastic programs. We noticed there was a lot of people that probably could have qualified that didn't because they didn't have the property tax exemptions. So,
Yes.
very good job, Brittany.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is, if you have any questions about anything else in the packet, you can always contact Tina. I'm going to take a motion. Are there any more questions? Take a motion by Alderman Moiseo, second by Alderman Kirkwood, to adjourn at 7:06 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.